Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy Resurrection Sunday. An 83-year-old man went through a drive-through in McDonald's. I guess he was taking a little bit too long to place his order. The woman in the car behind him just laid into her horn, rolled her window down, was waving and screaming expletives, clearly having a problem with just how long it was taking him to place his order. Pulled up to the first window, and he paid for his food, and then he paid for her food. I guess the cashier told her what he had done because when they moved up, she had her arms out the window. Thank you, thank you. She was so thankful and appreciative for all that he had done and presumed that he was repaying her rudeness with kindness. Isn't that what we're supposed to do as Christians? So she was all excited and happy and thrilled. And when he got to the second window, he showed him the receipt for his order, took the order that he got for himself. And then he showed the receipt for her order, and he took her order. And then he laughed because he knew she was going to have to go all the way through the line all over again. When Chuck Swindoll told that story, he said, "Don't mess with old folk, they've been around for a while." She had made it her problem. But I want to talk this morning about the fact that it's not your problem. For those that get upset when the people behind you honk their horn at whatever it is that you do, I'd like to suggest it's not your problem. For those who get upset when the people in front of you take too long, you know, you could have left earlier, and I just want to suggest that it's not your problem. For those who find themselves interacting with both the person in the front of the line and the person on the back of the line, and you're just trying to hand out food, you don't have to get into what it is that they're dealing with. I'd like to suggest it's not your problem. On Tuesday, the 26th of March, this past Tuesday, at 12:39 a.m., a 984-foot Singapore flagged tanker, the Dolly, pulled out of its berth in the maritime terminal southeast of Baltimore with the help of a couple of tugs. At 1:24 a.m., the cargo freighter's lights began to flicker on and off. 59 seconds later, there were audible alarms on the bridge. And at 1:26 a.m., the Dolly lost its lights again and started to drift to starboard. That's to the right, for those that don't know. Maryland Governor Wes Moore says this is about the time that they used a radio to place a Mayday call. I don't know if you've ever needed to place a Mayday call in your life, but they placed a Mayday call from the vessel, giving the transportation officials just enough time to stop the traffic on both sides of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. At 1:27 a.m., the pilot of the Dali made a radio call asking tugboats to assist. He ordered that the port anchor be dropped. And then he declared by radio that the Dali had lost all power. And when a ship loses its power, it no longer has the ability to steer. The Francis Scott Key Bridge services approximately 30,000 vehicles per day. The bridge was no match for a 95,000-ton cargo vessel traveling at 7 knots, which is about 8 miles an hour. It plowed into the bridge, and the bridge collapsed. At 1:29, the vessel hit the bridge. There was a crew of 6 people that were fixing potholes on the bridge. One who survived ran from the bridge. Another who survived fell into the water and swam to shore. At 7:30 p.m., Rear Admiral Shannon Gilreath told the press before dark, at this point, we're not believe that we're going to find any of these individuals still alive. We're going to suspend the act of search and rescue efforts. We do not expect to search for any more survivors at this point. You might think that I'm upset with the Rear Admiral. You might think that I want to cancel him. But the truth is, on quite the contrary, I want to celebrate him and I want to learn from him. Rather than risk additional lives, he determined it's not your problem. Considering the people whose lives he would have put on the line to scuba dive and look for others that he had determined were no longer going to be able to be found, that were no longer able to be alive, he considered their lives. And it amazed me that with calm and cool, he looked at the camera and he said they were going to stop the search. It might seem like that's not fair, that's not right, that's not okay, but if we could take the Mayday situations in our lives and have the calm, cool, and collect that the Rear Admiral had, and instead of making the situation worse, when we face what we cannot understand, when we face what we cannot deal with well, if we would recognize it's not our problem, we can make special progress. It could have been that the one that ran off the bridge could have joined the 4 that perished. Instead of running off the bridge, he could have had the attitude, no, I started these potholes and I need to finish these potholes. I don't know what they're talking about. My dad taught me when you start something, you have to finish it. And I'm concerned about these potholes. No, he realized those potholes were not his problem. The other one could have had the attitude who fell into the water. The regulations say you're not supposed to leave the vehicle you're assigned to. You're supposed to stay with the vehicle, and he should have felt some responsibility towards making sure the vehicle was well cared for. Well, guess what? When that bridge fell, those potholes and those vehicles no longer mattered, and the one who fell in the water and swam to the shore, I believe, came to the conclusion it was not his problem to be concerned about the potholes, to be concerned about the vehicles. God gave us all a role to play in life, and he will do his part. Maybe you missed that. Okay. God gives us a role to play. We all have a responsibility in life, but there's only so much we can do. And he will do his part. I guess before I go any farther, I need to give a cane caution right here, because some of you are probably thinking about The time in Genesis when Cain, after killing his brother, after his countenance had fallen, after he did not give unreasonable offering, and God said to him, "Where is your brother?" And he said, "Am I my brother's keeper?" I want to caution you that as I say it's not your problem, I'm not trying to get us to not care about our brothers and sisters. I'm not trying to get us to act as though anything anybody else does not matter, that we are not in relationship with other people. Cain caution is, I'm not saying nobody else matters. What I am saying is that it's not your problem outside of your role. Here in the text, Matthew 28, 1 through 8, Scripture says, "Now after the Sabbath, after the first day of the week began to dawn, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary came to see the tomb. And behold, there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled back the stone from the door and sat on it. His countenance was like lightning, and his clothing white as snow. And the guards shook for fear of him and became like dead men. But the angel answered and said to the women, 'Do not be afraid, for I know that you seek Jesus who was crucified. He is not here, for he is risen. As he said, come see the place where the Lord lay, and go quickly and tell his disciples that he is risen from the dead, and indeed he is going before you into Galilee. There you will see him. Behold, I have told you.' So we went quickly out from the tomb with fear and great joy, and ran to bring his disciples word." First part of this text, now after the Sabbath. I need us to understand everything as it relates to what was going on. You know, the Passover. You understand what the Passover was? The Passover was a celebration that the Jews needed to celebrate, thanking God for what he had done when he had taken an entire people and allowed the death angel to pass over all who had the blood of the Lamb on their doorposts. So as they celebrate the Passover, there was the Sabbath, which was the seventh day, but there was also a preparation prior to that where they got things ready. Now after the Sabbath, which was the seventh day, at the first day of the week, and just in case any of you were wondering why we celebrate on Sunday morning, it's because right here, it was on the first day of the week, it was Sunday. It began to dawn. You're probably thankful that we didn't have sunrise service. But it was early that first morning. Early. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary. Now, I'm sorry to the brothers. I know it's pretty often that women are kind of dealt with in a patriarchal way that the Bible was written in. But brothers, it's our turn to hear from the women. It's our turn to hear this story, which is described through the women. It was Mary Magdalene and the other Mary. My classmates in school would have laughed at me because I didn't mind personifying a woman as I considered a story when I would share it with the class. As a matter of fact, they laughed at me one time because I said, I am Pocahontas. And I told a story from a woman's perspective. Ultimately, we're looking at this from Mary Magdalene and the other Mary's perspective. They came to the tomb. It was a tomb. You realize that Jesus did die. It was a tomb. He had been buried in a borrowed tomb because he wasn't going to stay there, but it was a tomb. He was dead. He had died. And just like Jonah was in the belly of a great fish, 3 days and 3 nights, behold, there was a great earthquake. The world could not handle what had been done to the Savior. the world could not handle Jesus being in the ground. The world could not handle what had happened to the Christ. And there was a great earthquake. And an angel of the Lord descended from heaven. It was an angel of the Lord. It wasn't just any angel. All created beings were made by God, but it was an angel of the Lord who had descended from heaven. And he came and rolled the stone away from the door. I wonder what stones are in your life in the way of where you're trying to go today. I wonder what stones you face and you don't know how you can get them out of the way. You're wondering how you can deal with what is facing an obstacle to get you to where you want to go. He rolled the stone away. It was not for Jesus to get out, but it was so that they could get in. I don't know what problem it is that you're trying to fix. It's not yours to fix. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary, when they went to the tomb, they had no idea how they were going to deal with this stone. So whatever you're facing, that you don't know how you can fix it, it might not be for you to fix. It's not your problem. It might seem like the burden is too much. It might seem like way too much for you to handle. But he handled it. Rolled the stone from the door and he sat on it, and his countenance was like lightning. When we leave the sanctuary, people who didn't come should be able to look at us as believers and see us differently than when we walked in. They ought to see that we've had a relationship and a walk with somebody who matters and made a difference in our life. The same one who rose should rise in us, so much so that when people see us, they ought to see something different. The angel's countenance was like lightning, and his clothing white as snow. And the guards shook for fear of him and became like dead men. The problems that we face in this country, the problems that we face, those of us who have had an encounter with the Creator, ought to be positive, shine like light in those who don't know him. They ought to really face the situation like dead men and not think what they're doing is okay. The angel answered and said to the woman, they answered, whatever your questions are, they can be answered. They answered, they said, do not be afraid, for I know that you seek Jesus who was crucified. I don't want to take too much time to talk about crucifixion, but it's gruesome. It's challenging. The passion of the Christ was horrific. They refused to allow him to die from the scourging, which was horrible and hurtful and filled with pain. In the process of crucifixion, with his hands nailed and his feet nailed, had to be horrific, where just the process of breathing alone was going from one moment of pain to another moment of pain. When he could not breathe, he would press up on his feet, which would hurt, but that's the only way he could get air. And then when he would come down, his hands continued to be in pain. The process of crucifixion was horrific and hard to deal with. Now, what are these women, Mary Magdalene and Mary, supposed to do despite their fear? Let me pause and say, I have my own definition of fear. Fear is when the problems pass our pay grade and we don't know what to do. When what comes in our lives seems like it's too much for us and we get afraid and it's too much for us and we don't know what to do. God can allow fear to be something that works with us in our lives. Fear can be a positive factor. There are some things we should be afraid of. Fear can keep us from danger and problems. But what are we supposed to do when problems pass our pay grade? Mary and Mary, at the tomb, not knowing what to do. First thing I want to share from verse 6a, where it says, he is not here. Let me share with you that there's times in your lives when it feels like you're all alone. He wasn't there. They went to the tomb. They went to the tomb, but he was not there. Do you know what that feels like? When you have a problem and it seems like there's nobody to answer? When whatever it is that you're facing, whatever it is that you're going through, God seems to not be present. Jesus was entirely God and entirely man. And the physical man was not there. He was not there. What do you do when what you need is not present? None of the other disciples were present. For Mary Magdalene and Mary, he was not there. Brothers and sisters, God's got this without you. It's not your problem, because whatever is above your pay grade, whatever you're trying to fix, work out, deal with, and handle, God's got it. You don't have to see him. You don't have to know where he is. You don't have to have the answer. You don't have to know which way to turn. No matter how much you pray, no matter how much you give, no matter how much you find yourself in sorrow, struggling to try to figure it out, work it out, and handle it, it's not your problem. There is nothing more significant than the day we celebrate today. And it started off with Mary Magdalene and Mary at the tomb. The stone had been rolled away, and he was not there. How miserable it must have seemed to them. How afraid they must have been when everything that they had put their hopes in, everything that they had wanted, was gone. But God does have it without you. If you really want to see Deacon get uptight, if Tiffany and I are not present, he will lose his mind. That's why he's not in the pastor study right now. He cannot handle. Those of you that went to the annex before you came to church, you saw a little head bobbing up and down every now and then as you walked by, because he can't handle being by himself. And just like us, sometimes we need assurance of knowing that we're not alone. Knowing that the problems that we face, we're not facing them by ourselves. And Mary Magdalene and Mary had to deal with the fact that he was not there. But stop making things bigger and taking them on when they don't belong to you. God's got this without you. Not only was he not there, but he is risen. He's risen. That means absolutely everything. It means absolutely everything, because all that they thought that had been ruined was now being realized. All of the sin and shame, the Passover lamb, was now Jesus. And he was risen, so not only was the offering made and he fulfilled it, but he did not stay dead. He is risen. God is greater than you and me. So whatever we face, when it seems like he's not there and he actually is not present, God's got this, and he doesn't need our help to handle it. And he is risen, which means we've got hope beyond hope. God's got it when we don't have it. God can handle it when we cannot. When we have no answer, he is risen. Why wasn't he in the tomb? That's where they wanted him so they could see him. But he was risen. He'd already handled the situation. And he is risen. Finally, he is going before you. Verse 7b says he's going before you. You struggle because he's not present, but he's got this without you. He is risen, which gives all of us hope that we will one day be able to rise because he is greater than you. The fact that he is risen the way it's written is not just that he in his earthly power got up on his own accord. The fact that he was risen, God the Father raised him up and allowed him to be resurrected. So we don't pick ourselves up by our own bootstraps. He is risen indicates the fact that God does what we cannot do. God is greater than us. And not only does he handle what we cannot, but he's going before you. What you don't even know about in the future. I mean, you know about some problems, but there's some problems that he's handling before we even get to that place. I don't know what the problems are. I'm not able to foresee the future like that. But God is getting ready things for you and me. God is preparing things for you and me. Not only do we not have to struggle because he doesn't seem to be present, and that's okay, because he's got this without us, but he's risen, and he's greater than you and me, and he's going before you and me to get things ready. I would hate to have to try to eat a meal that nobody got ready. I would hate to try to be hungry because there was nobody in the kitchen to cook. I would hate to try to be able to get something in my system and somebody who's not better than me in the kitchen isn't doing the work that needs to be done so that I can have something that I didn't prepare for but was prepared for me. He's going before you and me. He's doing things that we don't have to understand. He's doing a great work. And after doing everything that was necessary on the cross, and he cried out that it is finished, and commended his spirit, the Lord did everything necessary. He's not here for he is risen. And as he said, come see the place where the Lord lay. Go quickly and tell his disciples that he is risen from the dead, and indeed he is going on before you into Galilee. There you will see him. Behold, I have told you. So they went quickly from the tomb with fear and great joy, and ran to bring his disciples word. It's simple. It's a blessing to know we don't have to always know where he is. We don't have to keep tabs on God. He's got this. The fact that he got up means there is absolutely nothing that can keep him down. The fact that he got up when he had paid the price for our sins means no matter what we face, he's already conquered it. He took the sting out of death. He took the sting out of hell and the grave. And right when Satan thought he had been victorious, Christ got the real victory. Amen. I'm so thankful that he is risen. And I'm so thankful that he's going before us. We don't have to know where he's going. We don't have to know what he's doing. Just know that he's doing it for our good. Maybe the real March Madness doesn't happen on a basketball court. Maybe it's that we try to do too much. We try to handle more than is ours. But it's not our place to do what is above our pay grade. It's not your problem. He's got this.